While I was building a new life in Norway, my parents quietly moved my younger brother into my luxury apartment in Seattle. They had no idea I had sold it 3 weeks earlier to Mara Voss, a litigation attorney famous for treating trespassers like hostile witnesses. The truth arrived with the tactical police unit. The screen tore through my phone so sharply that for half a second, I thought someone had been shot. "Elias, they're smashing through the door! There are armed men in the hallway!" My brother Damon's voice cracked beneath pure panic. Behind him, I heard furniture scraping, boots striking hardwood, and someone shouting commands. I did not stand. I did not spill my coffee. I remained at a small cafe beside Oslo's frozen harbor, watching snow collect on the black railings outside. I was not calm because I was confused. I was calm because I understood exactly what had happened. "Elias, say something," Damon shouted. "Call the building manager. Tell him I'm your brother. Tell the police I have permission." Even with rifles pointed at him, he still assumed I would rescue him. That had always been my position in our family. Damon created the emergency, I paid for it, explained it, repaired it, and protected him from whatever consequence came next. But the old reflex was gone. "Who gave you the emergency key?" I asked. The line went quiet for one revealing second. "Mom and Dad," he muttered. Then fear turned into indignation. "They said it was fine. You moved to Europe. The place was sitting empty, and I needed somewhere professional to meet investors. Stop acting weird and call security." I looked through the cafe window as a ferry pushed through gray water. Damon had entered with suitcases, used an old key to unlock the private elevator, and forced his way past a security panel that no longer recognized him. In his mind, my home had never been mine. It was a family resource purchased with my salary and available whenever his life collapsed. My parents had made the same calculation they had made for 30 years. Elias would object, they would accuse him of selfishness, and eventually he would surrender. This time, they had moved a piece onto a board I had already thrown away. "I can't call them off," I said. "What do you mean you can't? It's your apartment." A violent crash sounded through the speaker. A man ordered Damon to get on the floor. "No," I replied, feeling something inside me become perfectly still. "It isn't." I ended the call. What Damon did not know was that the penthouse had belonged to Mara Voss for 22 days. She had purchased it in cash, replaced the access system, and instructed the building's private security company to treat every unauthorized entry as a criminal breach. My family believed they were borrowing space from the dependable son who always forgave them. Instead, they had broken into the home of a woman who built her career by making examples of people who ignored contracts. Permanent.
To understand why I let my own brother face criminal charges without lifting a finger, you need to understand the architecture of my childhood. I usually told people I came from Portland. The truth was that I grew up in a system built to drain one child so the other stayed comfortable. My parents, Gordon and Elias, ran our family like a bad company. Damon was the promising investment, the misunderstood genius who needed one more chance, one more loan, one more rescue. I was the infrastructure, quiet, useful, dependable, and expected to function without praise. If Damon was the future, I was the emergency generator. I understood that arrangement at 16, when Damon was 14. He stole marine flares from a warehouse because he thought setting one off behind our house would impress his friends. When it ignited, he panicked and dropped it. The flare rolled beneath the fence into our neighbor's wooden shed. Minutes later, the roof was burning. Fire engines crowded the street. Police lights flashed across our windows. Damon stood barefoot on the wet lawn, crying so hard he could barely breathe. My father never raised his voice at him. Instead, Gordon dragged me into the kitchen and struck me across the face. "Why weren't you watching him? I wasn't even outside. You're older." Before I could understand it, he had created the story. "When the officer asks, you'll say the flare was yours." "I didn't do it." Gordon leaned close. "Damon is sensitive. A charge could ruin his future. You're stronger, Elias. You can take the damage." I had heard that sentence my whole life. You are stronger. You can handle it. He needs us more. So when the furious neighbor and an officer reached our driveway, I stepped forward and confessed to something I had not done. My parents did not thank me. They acted as though I had completed a task. Later, Gordon said, taking responsibility builds character. What it built was a pattern. I became the family's shock absorber. Every debt, lie, broken promise, and ruined opportunity Damon created landed on me. I paid bills, made apologies, replaced damaged property, and persuaded people not to call the police. The more capable I became, the less responsible Damon was required to be. By college, the difference between us was treated like natural law. I chose software engineering because it was difficult, valuable, and offered a route out. My parents refused to contribute a cent. "Struggle teaches discipline," Gordon said. So I worked nights guarding an office tower, repaired computers for classmates, and washed dishes on weekends. I learned to function on 4 hours of sleep while Damon lived in another world. My parents paid for tutors, furnished apartments, vacations, and endless fresh starts. He changed majors 3 times, quit whenever effort was required, and still called himself an entrepreneur. Every failure proved society did not understand him. Every success I earned proved I needed nothing.
The difference became clear when I graduated with honors. There was no dinner. Elias did not attend. Gordon came but spent the ceremony answering calls from work. When I stepped off the stage holding my diploma, he met me near the parking garage. "Good job," he said, turning toward his car. "One of our servers crashed. Come to the office tonight and rebuild the network." 3 days later, Damon quit another business program because the professors were hostile to original thinkers. My parents bought him a silver sports coupe. Elias posted photographs online praising his courage. I saw them while eating instant noodles in my narrow apartment. That was when I understood my value to them. I was not loved for being reliable. I was useful because I was reliable. The more problems I solved, the more Damon was allowed to create. Only my grandfather, Walter, treated me as human. He gave me my first computer, listened when I spoke, and asked what I wanted instead of what the family needed. Walter never called me strong when he meant convenient. He died during a freezing rainstorm 6 years later. Before the medication pulled him under, he squeezed my wrist. "Do not let them turn your life into their repair shop." Those were his last words. My family gave me less than a day to grieve. After the funeral, near the cemetery gates, Elias took my arm. "Damon is in trouble." Of course he was. He had borrowed money for an investment platform, lost it on reckless trades, and owed nearly $40,000. "We need you to co-sign a loan," she said, "just until his next funding round." I looked toward Walter's coffin being lowered into the ground. The only person who had protected me was being buried, and my mother saw a chance to access my credit. "No." Her face hardened. "Elias, this is not the time to be selfish." "It is exactly the time." I walked away. That refusal did not destroy the system, but it damaged it. A part of me disconnected that afternoon and never came back online. Over the next years, I built a career in cloud security. My work took me across Europe and earned me a senior role with an international technology firm. I bought a secure penthouse in downtown Seattle. I believed distance, money, and locked doors would create a boundary my family could not cross. I was wrong. They saw my success as expanded capacity. Every promotion proved I could lend more. Every bonus became a reason to cover Damon's rent. Every trip became an excuse to treat my home as vacant property. The final break arrived disguised as a family dinner, 2 weeks before I was due to begin a long assignment in Norway. The house still smelled the same: furniture polish, burnt onions, and old carpet. Damon sat at the table scrolling through his phone, sighing loudly enough to make sure everyone understood he was suffering. Halfway through dinner, Gordon cleared his throat. "Your brother has been going through a difficult period," he began.
The difference became clear when I graduated with honors. There was no dinner. Elias did not attend. Gordon came but spent the ceremony answering calls from work. When I stepped off the stage holding my diploma, he met me near the parking garage. "Good job," he said, turning toward his car. "One of our servers crashed. Come to the office tonight and rebuild the network." 3 days later, Damon quit another business program because the professors were hostile to original thinkers. My parents bought him a silver sports coupe. Elias posted photographs online praising his courage. I saw them while eating instant noodles in my narrow apartment. That was when I understood my value to them. I was not loved for being reliable. I was useful because I was reliable. The more problems I solved, the more Damon was allowed to create. Only my grandfather, Walter, treated me as human. He gave me my first computer, listened to when I spoke, and asked what I wanted instead of what the family needed. Walter never called me strong when he meant convenient. He died during a freezing rainstorm 6 years later. Before the medication pulled him under, he squeezed my wrist. "Do not let them turn your life into their repair shop." Those were his last words. My family gave me less than a day to grieve. After the funeral, near the cemetery gates, Elias took my arm. "Damon is in trouble." Of course he was. He had borrowed money for an investment platform, lost it on reckless trades, and owed nearly $40,000. "We need you to co-sign a loan," she said, "just until his next funding round." I looked toward Walter's coffin being lowered into the ground. The only person who had protected me was being buried, and my mother saw a chance to access my credit. "No." Her face hardened. "Elias, this is not the time to be selfish." "It is exactly the time." I walked away. That refusal did not destroy the system, but it damaged it. A part of me disconnected that afternoon and never came back online. Over the next years, I built a career in cloud security. My work took me across Europe and earned me a senior role with an international technology firm. I bought a secure penthouse in downtown Seattle. I believed distance, money, and locked doors would create a boundary my family could not cross. I was wrong. They saw my success as expanded capacity. Every promotion proved I could lend more. Every bonus became a reason to cover Damon's rent. Every trip became an excuse to treat my home as vacant property. The final break arrived, disguised as a family dinner, 2 weeks before I was due to begin a long assignment in Norway. The house still smelled the same: furniture polish, burnt onions, and old carpet. Damon sat at the table scrolling through his phone, sighing loudly enough to make sure everyone understood he was suffering. Halfway through dinner, Gordon cleared his throat. "Your brother has been going through a difficult period," he began.
His landlord refused to renew the lease, Gordon continued, and the market is terrible for founders right now. I kept cutting my food because I knew the destination. Elise leaned forward and used the gentle voice she reserved for manipulation. "Sweetheart, you'll be in Oslo for months. Your penthouse is enormous and it will sit empty. We decided Damon should move in until his company becomes stable." I put down my knife. "How long?" 2 or 3 years, she answered, as if discussing a completed arrangement. "He needs an impressive address for meetings." "My home is not a conference center." Gordon's jaw tightened. "Do not speak to your mother like that. The security system uses my biometric profile. No one is moving in." He shrugged. "You have more money than you need while your brother sleeps in our guest room. You are behaving like an arrogant child." He only smiled at his screen, confident they would break my resistance for him. "I bought the apartment," I said. "I pay the taxes and maintenance. Damon is 31. He can find work and rent his own place." Elise gasped. "It is empty space, Elias. You are choosing walls over your own brother." "No, I am choosing ownership over theft." Damon looked up. "You always act superior because you have some corporate title. I expect people not to occupy my home without permission." Gordon pointed toward the door. "If you leave, do not expect this family to support you when you need us." I could not remember a time they had supported me. I took my coat and left. Before I reached my car, messages began arriving. My Aunt Rebecca called me cruel. A cousin described me as emotionally defective. Elise sent a photograph of Damon sleeping on their sofa beneath the words, "Look what you are doing to him." For most of my life, their accusations triggered guilt. That night, behind the wheel, I felt only clarity. They did not see me as a son. They saw me as storage, credit, technical support, and emergency housing. I drove back to Seattle through heavy rain. When I entered the penthouse, the city glowed beneath the windows. I went straight to my office, woke my workstation, and opened an encrypted spreadsheet. For the next 11 hours, I audited my family. I searched 10 years of bank records, transfers, credit statements, archived emails, and tax documents. I created columns for date, amount, requested purpose, actual purpose, and repayment. I listed every temporary loan Gordon had requested for his shipping company and never returned. I recorded Damon's rent, legal fees, overdrafts, car repairs, and emergency bills I had quietly covered. I added the family phone plan I had paid since college. Then I found Elise's medical emergencies. 3 matched charges from luxury resorts and spa retreats. By dawn, the skyline had turned violet. My eyes burned, but the numbers were clean. I calculated the total. $194,760. That was the measurable cost of belonging to my family.
It was not a collection of accidents. It was a business model built around my silence. I stared at the total and understood that simply saying no would never be enough. They would keep testing doors, passwords, accounts, and guilt until they found a weakness. So I saved the spreadsheet under one name, The Ledger. Then I opened my company email. For nearly a year, my employer had asked me to relocate permanently to Oslo and lead a new European security division. I had always refused because part of me still believed I needed to remain close enough to rescue my own family. At 6:14 that morning, I accepted. My next message went to Mara Voss. Mara was a commercial litigation attorney who purchased properties through private cash deals. She was known for fast closings and a complete lack of patience for trespassers. I offered her my penthouse at an 18% discount in exchange for a confidential sale with no public listing. She replied 40 minutes later. We met that afternoon on the 51st floor of a glass tower overlooking Elliott Bay. There were no family photographs on her walls, only legal files, architectural plans, and a stone desk. Mara studied the appraisal. "You are leaving quickly," she said. "In 12 days. And you are willing to lose this much equity for speed?" "Yes." She looked at me. "What are you escaping?" "I am not escaping. I am removing the structure they keep trying to occupy." A faint smile appeared. "I can close in 8 business days." The transaction moved with brutal efficiency. Funds reached my account, the deed transferred, and I signed a lease back allowing my furniture to remain until my flight. From the street, nothing changed. The lights still turned on, the blinds opened, the building staff saw me come and go, but the apartment was no longer mine. During my nights in Seattle, I dismantled the financial system that had kept my family comfortable. I canceled every transfer. I removed my card from Damon's accounts. I separated the family phone plan. I closed the emergency credit line Gordon used for his company and revoked Elisa's access to my savings account. Then I transferred control of the Penthouse security network to Mara. The property used biometric locks, cameras, elevator authentication, and silent intrusion alerts. I gave her administrator access and deleted my own credentials. I sent one message: the property is legally yours. If anyone enters after my departure without authorization, treat it as criminal trespass. I will not intervene. Mara answered with 2 words: understood completely. I did not invent evidence, I did not invite anyone inside, I did not tell my family the apartment was available. I simply packed my belongings, left the old emergency key exactly where Elias had always kept it in her kitchen drawer, and boarded my flight to Norway. All I did was step aside. For the first time, their choices would reach them without passing through me first.
5 days after arriving in Oslo, I received proof that leaving had been the right decision. I was in company housing reviewing documents when a red banking alert appeared on my laptop. A charge for $3,850 had cleared on a secondary credit card at a luxury casino resort in Atlantic City. I felt no rage, only focus. I logged into the account and checked the history. Damon had not stolen the physical card. He had used information saved on his laptop from 2 years earlier when I had paid for emergency dental work. He had booked a premium suite, bottle service, and a private gambling table to impress people he called investors. He did it because he still believed my money was a family utility. I called Elias. She answered cheerfully. "Elias, sweetheart, your father was just asking whether you could fix his company email remotely." Damon charged nearly $4,000 to my card. There was a small pause while she rearranged reality. "Oh, don't overreact. You know how much pressure he is under. His partners abandoned him, and he needed a few days to think. He stole my financial information. He borrowed it," she snapped. "He plans to repay you when the company receives funding. He does not have a company. That attitude is exactly why he struggles. You never support him emotionally." I stared through the window at rain moving across the Oslo rooftops. "He committed fraud." "You earn more in a month than most people earn in a year," she said. "Why must you make everything difficult?" Then her voice softened. "Let this go. We are moving his things into your penthouse tomorrow. He needs somewhere safe when he returns." For a moment, I almost laughed. "I am not destroying the family's peace," I said. "I am documenting it." I ended the call, reported the charge as fraudulent, canceled the card, and sent the records to the bank's investigation department. I knew what would happen next. Damon would attempt to check out. The payment would fail. Hotel security would detain him until another card appeared. Gordon would drain company funds to rescue him. The sudden expense would make my parents desperate. Desperate people move faster. They would take the old key, pack Damon's luggage, and send him into the penthouse without permission, convinced I would forgive them later. Everything unfolded exactly that way. Gordon used money reserved for employee payroll to settle the hotel bill and prevent the casino from filing a complaint. Damon returned to Seattle humiliated, furious, and nearly broke. Elias told him to stay in my penthouse until the situation cooled down. They believed I was thousands of miles away, unaware, and still paying for a home that legally belonged to someone else. 2 days later, Mara sent me a message. "Your brother entered the building garage at 8:43 p.m. He has 3 suitcases and an unauthorized key. Security is observing." I read it again. Then I placed my phone beside my coffee and waited.
Mora's security report reconstructed every step. Damon entered through the residential garage to avoid the front desk. The old emergency key activated the private elevator, so he assumed everything was working as Elias had promised. When the doors opened, he found a new biometric panel beside the entrance. Mora had replaced the old fingerprint system with facial recognition and a rotating code linked to her phone. Damon tried my previous code. Access denied. He entered it again, harder, as if force could change the answer. Access denied. Then he called Elias. The hallway camera recorded her telling him the system was malfunctioning and ordering him to just get inside. That sentence was our family history compressed into 3 words. Damon dropped his bags and struck the door with his shoulder. When it did not move, he pulled a fire extinguisher from the emergency cabinet. The first blow cracked the screen. The second tore it from the wall. He expected a loud alarm. The hallway remained silent. Damaging the panel activated a concealed signal. The building's security team received the camera feed. So did Mora. She watched him swing again and called the police. At 8:51 p.m., security locked the elevator and stairwell exits. Damon forced enough of the broken panel aside to trigger the interior release. He entered, dragged his luggage inside, and called our mother to celebrate. 7 minutes later, armed officers entered the building. I was sitting in an Oslo cafe, watching sleet slide down the glass. My phone vibrated across the table. Damon's name appeared. I answered. "Elias, they're breaking through the door." Behind him, officers announced themselves. "Put the extinguisher down. Get on the floor." "Call the manager," Damon shouted. "Tell them I live here." "Who gave you the key?" "Mom had it. She said you would calm down once I was settled." "So you entered after I told you not to." "It's an empty apartment." A crash sounded. Damon began breathing so quickly that his words blurred. "There are rifles pointed at me. Fix this." I lifted my coffee. That tone activated an old reflex. I would stop thinking, accept responsibility, and solve the crisis. This time, nothing activated. "I cannot authorize your presence there." "What are you talking about? You own the place." "No," I said. "I sold it." Silence. The chaos behind him felt far away. "You what?" "The apartment belongs to Mora Voss." "You're lying." An officer ordered him onto his knees. Damon's voice collapsed into terror. Elias, please, tell her it was a misunderstanding. It stopped being a misunderstanding when you destroyed her security system. Metal snapped through the speaker. Handcuffs. You are under arrest for unlawful entry and destruction of private property, an officer announced. Damon screamed my name as the phone struck the floor. I ended the call. For the first time in my life, the damage reached the person who created it.
3 weeks later, I signed the final papers for my transfer and ignored dozens of messages from Seattle. Damon spent 2 nights in jail before Gordon found enough money for bail. The charges remained. Mara refused every request to handle things privately. She submitted the hallway footage, damaged panel, recorded call with Elias, and building logs to the prosecutor. My family blamed me. Elias left voicemail saying I had betrayed my own blood. Gordon threatened to sue me. Rebecca posted messages about successful children forgetting who raised them. I saved everything. Then my employer asked me to return to the United States once to close accounts and sign documents. I told no one. It did not matter. Rebecca's daughter worked for the travel agency used by my company. She accessed my itinerary and gave my parents the arrival time. My plane landed in Seattle beneath gray clouds. I left the secure area with 1 suitcase and found all 3 waiting near baggage claim. Gordon stood in front. Elias clutched a tissue she had not yet needed. Damon looked pale, exhausted, and angrier than afraid. Gordon stepped toward me. We are going to settle this today. I stopped several feet away. What exactly are we settling? What you did to your brother, Elias said. You allowed armed officers to drag him out of your home. It was not my home. You knew he would go there, Damon snapped. You could have warned me. I told you not to enter. You sold it without telling us. In his mind, my property required family approval before I could sell it. Gordon pointed at my chest. Call Mara Voss and make her drop the charges. Tell her this was a misunderstanding. Damon forced entry, destroyed a security panel, and occupied property he did not own. He made a mistake, Gordon said. You turned it into a catastrophe. You were his older brother. You were supposed to protect him. That sentence once controlled me. Now, it sounded ridiculous. I am not his lawyer, banker, or emergency exit. Damon moved closer. You planned this. No. I removed myself. You supplied the rest. I opened my leather bag and removed a folder. You want to know why I left? Here is the answer. I placed it on a metal table and opened it. Inside were bank statements, transfers, emails, receipts, and summaries covering 10 years. I call it the ledger. I began reading. 4 years ago, $6,000 to repair Damon's car after he hit a divider. 5 years ago, $17,000 toward Gordon's tax penalties. 7 years ago, $29,000 in rent to prevent Damon from being evicted from 3 apartments. Stop this, Elias whispered. I continued. Business loans, medical emergencies that became resort weekends, legal fees, credit cards, phone plans, unpaid debts. Then I turned to the final page. The total is $194,760. That, I said, is what your version of family cost me.
Elise stared at the final number as though it were written in another language. We are your parents, she whispered. You cannot reduce us to a spreadsheet. You reduced me to a resource long before I created one. Gordon's face hardened. You owe us your life. No, I owed you the chance to be parents. You spent it. Damon grabbed the folder. You think money makes you better than us? I think choices have consequences. That is the lesson all 3 of you avoided. Before Elise could cry, a firm voice came from behind us. Elias! I turned. Mara Voss approached through the terminal in a charcoal coat with a leather briefcase. Gordon recognized her. His company had spent months competing for one of her contracts. His anger vanished beneath a business smile. Mara Voss, I have been trying to reach your office about our proposal. I am not here to discuss it, she faced me. I brought the final sale papers and certified security logs. Your signature is required before departure. She placed them beside the ledger, speaking clearly. The police report confirms forced entry, destruction of the access panel, and unauthorized occupation of my residence. Elise stared at her. You're pressing charges against our son? Yes. It was a family misunderstanding. No, Mara replied. Your son entered a stranger's property, ignored access denials, destroyed security equipment, and forced his way inside. Gordon moved closer. We will pay for the damage. There is no need to ruin a young man's future. He is 31. Damon stepped behind our father. I will pursue the case as far as the law permits, Mara said. Elias completed a legal sale and left before the incident. Gordon swallowed. Perhaps we can resolve this privately. Our companies may soon work together. They will not. His expression changed. My group requires contractors with stable finances and credible leadership. Your firm used payroll reserves to cover a casino debt created by your adult son. That indicates unacceptable risk. You cannot reject us over a private family matter. I already have. For the first time, my father seemed smaller. The contract was gone, and his company had little cash. Damon faced charges, and the son who repaired everything was leaving. Elias, he said quietly, we need you. If we lose that account, the business may fail. I signed Mara's papers and returned the pen. You built your stability on my willingness to absorb every collapse. Now you will learn whether you can stand without me. Ellie stepped forward. You would abandon your own mother?
I am ending access. You have a husband, a home, and an adult son you chose to support. Damon's face twisted. So that is it? You just leave? Yes. I closed the ledger, placed it in my bag, and lifted my suitcase. Mara nodded once and walked toward the exit. I turned toward international security. Behind me, Gordon called my name. I did not look back.
6 months later, Gordon's company lost 2 major clients, downsized, and filed for bankruptcy. The payroll money he used to rescue Damon from the casino became the first crack. Mara's rejected contract became the last. Elias sold their house and moved into a smaller rental. Most of the savings she claimed did not exist disappeared into legal fees. Damon accepted a plea agreement. He avoided prison but received probation, community service, and an order to repay the destroyed security system. The last update came through a cousin. He was working night shifts at a warehouse. For the first time, nobody was financing his dreams. My life in Oslo became quieter than I had imagined. I found an apartment overlooking the fjord, learned Norwegian, and stopped checking my phone whenever it vibrated. The messages from my family slowed, then stopped. I kept the ledger for months. One winter morning, I opened it and studied the total. The number no longer made me angry. It belonged to someone I had been, a man who believed love had to be purchased through endurance. I encrypted the file, archived it, and closed the laptop. I was no longer their infrastructure. I was not a shield, a bank account, a repair service, or a human firewall. I was simply Elias. Quiet revenge is not always a scream. Sometimes it is a locked door, a one-way ticket, and the strength to leave the people knocking on the other side. My life was mine.